Mask Girl, and it's another Netflix review for you. And it's your boy Icon here to talk about some of this good, sweet television goodness. So, before we get started, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already to my channel, because we're doing the drive for 500, and we're 5 subscriptions away from reaching 500. I love you all for helping me get there. So, this one is a little different, because this particular series, it's only 7 episodes. So it's a good watch for somebody. It's a good quick watch if you want to watch something really good really quickly. But the thing is, it kind of reminded me of Lovecraft Country. Because when I watched Lovecraft Country for the first time, which is on Max, so you can go to Max and check it out. When I first watched Lovecraft Country, it was a typical story about segregation times. You know, black people being held down, get to the back of the bus, use your own bathroom, things of that nature. So I'm watching it and I'm just like, okay, so here we go, like the typical segregation storyline. But then at the end of the first episode, like monsters showed up, and then when monsters showed up, the entire show just shifted into something. I was just like, what happened? Like, how did we get here? And I kind of feel that way about Mask Girl, because it started out as one thing, and then by the time you got to the 7th and final episode, you were just like, this isn't it felt like a completely different show by the time it got to the end. But I did enjoy it, so to say right out the gate, I say the yay. It is a good watch, and you should definitely watch it. So I'm gonna try to break this up, because like I'm not gonna do episode reviews. So I'm gonna try to basically briefly explain each individual episode so we can get through the plot. There are definitely gonna be spoilers, but please feel free to go back and watch it on Netflix to check it out. So it basically starts. The series starts. It's a little girl who, since she was a child, she wanted to be an entertainer. She wanted to dance. She wanted people to admire her. And her mother was a very beautiful woman. There was no mention of her daddy. But for some reason, they're trying to tell us that this particular character, the main character, Mask Girl, they're basically trying to portray her as being ugly. I didn't think she was ugly. They were showing like when she was a kid, she was doing like ballet recitals and everything. And then everybody was like, yo, get this ugly kid off the stage. And when she was a teenager, she was in like school performances and everybody was like, oh, you're hideous and everything. And to the point where like even her mother constantly told her like, oh, like you're not attractive, like you're ugly, you'll never find a husband, things like that. And I was just like, that's kind of crazy. It's like, but her mom was one of those stuck up like elitist chicks who was just like, oh, high society and turning up my nose and blah blah blah. So I mean that kind of made sense, but it's a shame. So the girl basically grew up, and I didn't think she was ugly, but the girl grew up thinking she was ugly. And because of that, like her dreams of becoming like a famous entertainer, dancer or whatever, because those hopes and dreams were all crushed, she ended up taking like a basic 9-to-5 job working at some corporate company. But because she still secretly had the passion for wanting to be a performer and for wanting to be a dancer, although she had her 9-to-5 job, at nighttime when she goes home, she's a cam girl. And she goes on the internet and she dresses in like, you know, provocative, like sexy outfits. She puts a mask on and she dances on camera as a cam girl. And that's how she got the name Mask Girl, because, you know, Mask Girl is her cam girl persona. And this allows her to perform her dances, and then she has all these men, you know, like logging into her feed and like checking her out. They're giving her money, and you know, it fulfills her like itch of wanting to be a performer and wanting to be famous. Now here's where it so I'm thinking, okay, so the whole story is basically about an ugly chick that wants to be famous, so she puts on a mask and she dances on camera. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I think the show is about. So now here's where it starts to turn. So then there's one particular, like the Mask Girl, she had a thing for her boss. Like she thought her boss was attractive. And there's another guy who works at her company, one of her coworkers, who he knows her secret because he's one of her followers on the internet. And he was so obsessed with detail. He'd recognize like her bone structure, her arms, her weight. He knew like scars that she had all over her body. And then there was a particular scar that Mask Girl, you know, had on her. And he saw that same blemish on, because the girl's name was Momi Kim. He saw the same blemish on her at work. So he knew that she was Mask Girl. and he was like one of those like nerd loser types who can't get nobody. He was like madly in love with her. He kept sending her like, messages and things like anonymously. She never knew it was him, but she was pining over her boss. She later found out that her boss, well, she tried to talk to her boss at one point, and then like her boss kind of like blew her off. And then there was a day where like her and her boss got drunk at a party or something, and then he got drunk, and then she took him back to her apartment, let him sleep it off. He thought he had sex with her. Then he got up and like ran out of the house. She thought things between them were actually getting good, and like they might actually like develop some chemistry. But then she found out that he was secretly banging the intern that like that worked at the job, which devastated her. And then she went home, to cry. And then that's when the coworker messaged her, and he was just like, oh, you don't have to feel bad about your boss. He was like, like you're beautiful. He was like, I would love to be with you. And then it turned to this whole big thing. This other guy ended up messaging her, from her cam shows. And then he kind of like, he caught her at the wrong time, because it said she was feeling some kind of way when she found out that her boss would never love her. So she ended up like I said, right, like he caught her in the right moment, and he was just like, hey, mask girl, why don't we meet up for drinks or for dinner somewhere? And then she went down and like never meet up with a fan. Like especially like in those particular situations, like if you're doing like OF or if you're doing like cam stuff, never meet up with a fan. But she met up with him for dinner, and then she showed up with the mask on, and then the two of them were talking, having conversation, and then he asked her, he was just like, hey, why don't you take off the mask so I can see who you really are? So she took off the mask, and then he was like, oh, like you're really pretty, like you're beautiful. This is episode 2, by the way. He was like, you're really beautiful, like you're pretty and everything. Meanwhile, he's online texting everybody that's part of her cam show. He's just like, yo, I'm on a date with Mask Girl. This chick is hideous in real life. You guys should see it. And then the guy, her coworker, because he's part of that chat, he found out that this one particular person was like making fun of her behind her back, and he only used her for the date just so he can like try to play her. So he found her location from where they were, and he goes down to try to warn her like, hey, this guy's actually trying to play you, because I said he really liked her. So Mask Girl and the date, the two of them end up going to a hotel, like a motel hotel. So while they're there, like the guy, like he wants to do the deed. She was going to do it. And then at the last minute, she kind of like changed her mind, because she was just like, I don't think I want to do this. And then he tried to force himself on her. And while the two of them were struggling, she killed him. She like I mean, you want to say accidentally, but I mean, he was forcing himself on her, and due to that struggle, he died. Like he killed her. And then after he died, then that's when like the coworkers showed up, and then she was upset and she was crying and then everything, and then he was like, oh, don't worry, he said, I'll take care of this for you. So the coworker actually took care of the body and tried to like protect her secret. So after he got rid of the body and everything, and he dumped the body, he went to her apartment, and then because he was just like, well, I helped her out, like I did a solid for her, like I did a good thing for her. So he said like I should, she should like me now, like I should be in her good graces. He goes back to her, because he didn't see her for like a week after that whole situation. He goes to her apartment, and then when he goes to her apartment, he finds out that she ended up getting plastic surgery. Like she paid for plastic surgery, she quit her job, her face was covered, and then when he saw that she had got plastic surgery, he was like, why would you do that? You were perfect the way you were and everything. And then she was like, no, I'm hideous. And then she told him, she was just like, you and I will never be together. She was like, I don't like you like that. She was like, I'm leaving the town or the Japan or whatever the hell. And then he got upset, and then he was just like, no, you can't leave because I love you. And then he forced himself on her. And then after he forced himself on her, she killed him. So now there are two. So now the girl done killed 2 people now. So after she killed him, she disposed of the body. I guess like she because he had like a huge internet situation where like a lot of the stuff that he was doing, like he was tracking, like his obsession with her was basically like cataloged in the internet. So, she killed him, and then, she got a plastic surgery, and then she dipped. So now the police are trying to investigate the, like the death of this person. The guy, the coworker, his mom found out about it, and then she went into her son's computer, and then she saw that her son had, this is episode 3 now, because each episode is about like a different character. The first episode was about Mask Girl. The second episode was about the coworker. Now the third episode is about the coworker's mom, who's trying to investigate who killed her son. So she finds out that her son was obsessed with this Mask Girl person. She blew her entire life savings trying to find out who Mask Girl is. And the whole episode is about her trying to track Mask Girl down all over the planet. And then eventually she ends up finding her. Episode 4, it now shows what happened to Mask Girl after she left. So she basically joined, I don't want to call it a brothel, because it wasn't a brothel. It's more like a nightclub, like a very sexy nightclub. It was a nightclub somewhere where men show up and watch beautiful women perform. There was another girl who worked at this nightclub. Her name was Kim Chun. And just like Mask Girl, she grew up thinking that she was ugly too. She was a little overweight and everything. She liked this boy who ended up being like a famous singer, and then like he played her. He was just using her for like her money and her resources and everything because he was a loser, despite being rich and famous. And then because she grew up feeling that she was ugly and she was rejected by the boy that she liked, she ended up getting plastic surgery as well, and she changed her entire appearance. So both her and Mask Girl end up working at the same club, and the two of them were beefing for a little bit because they were trying to decide like who the prettiest was and who the men wanted to see more and everything, who could make the most money. But in the end, the two of them decided that they were better off together, working together. So they team up together and they decide to perform together as a duo act, which drove all the men crazy. So now we have a Thelma and Louise situation going where the two girls who got plastic surgery are now living their dream of being world famous, like, well, not world famous, but being very famous performers and, getting the adulations of men all over the world. The mom from the coworker's mom, she's still trying to track Mask Girl down. So she's still out there in these streets trying to hunt this chick down. And she actually tracked this chick down to the club. So then she met up with the other girl, and then she was just like, oh, do you know this woman? She killed my son. And then the woman was just like, well, then the girl was just like, well, I don't know her. Like, she used to work at the club, but she doesn't work anymore. Obviously, she was lying because her and Mask Girl are like best friends now. So now, and then she told her, she was like, yo, there's some strange old woman that's like asking about you. And she was just like, oh, don't worry about it. And then the two of them decided like, well, maybe we should leave town together in case it turns out to be a problem. Now the boy who she liked as a child, who ended up losing his music career when he got older, he found her later on, like she found him later on, and the two of them ended up dating. But he was still a loser, he was still a deadbeat, and because of that, like, they dated for a while, but then she let him move in, and then after a while, she was like, oh, you can't stay here anymore, you gotta go. She was just like, because her and Mask Girl were planning on like leaving together, so she was like, I want you out of my house. And then that's when he got mad and he beat her ass, and then he started abusing her. So while he was abusing her, then Mask Girl actually showed up to try to see her friend, and then when she walked in and saw her friend getting her ass beat, then Mask Girl actually killed her, and Mask Girl killed the boy. So I'm like, damn, you done murdered 3 people now. So like it's just a tray of murder. Like this girl, she's killing everybody. But the problem is, although like murder is murder, and she still committed crimes, and there's nothing that you can do about that. Like, a crime is a crime. Like, at the end of the day, you did kill people. The problem is, all 3 situations were like, I don't want to say justified, but they were all 3 self-defense. Like, in the first situation, she was being forced upon. The second situation, he had already forced himself on her. And the third situation, the guy was killing her best friend. So I'm just like, this girl can't win for losing. So now both her and her friend, they take the body of the guy, they put him in the car, and they were just like, we're going to dump him off in the river, and then we're going to leave town. The mom sees them like putting the guy in the car, and she follows them. When the 2 girls went down to the docks, well, not the docks, they went down to the pond or something. When they went to dispose of the body, the grandmother came out of nowhere with a gun. And then she was just like, oh, you're the bitch who killed my son. And then, she was just like, oh, but, he tried to take advantage of me. And then she was like, you liar, you're a lying whore, you killed my son. And then when the grandmother attempts to kill Mask Girl, her best friend jumped in the way, and she literally took the bullet for her. And then after that, Mask Girl ended up knocking out the grandmother, but by then it was too late because her best friend was dead. And she was devastated because that was the only girl who understood her, like they had similar paths. But now her friend, like I said, Kim Chun is dead. So what Mask Girl does, she puts Kim Chun in the car, she puts the grandmother in the car, she puts the shotgun in the car that the grandmother had to try to kill them, and she pushed the car into the ocean to basically say that the grandmother was the one that killed the friend. So she, and then after she pushed the car into the ocean, the Mask Girl dipped. And that was how episode 4 ended. So now in episode 5, Mask Girl decides to turn herself in. She turns herself into prison. And then, when she turned herself into prison, she was sentenced to life because she basically, like, she admitted everything, like all the bodies that she killed and everything. And then because of that, the judge threw the book at her and said that you're a danger to society and you got to spend life in prison. But now she looks completely different because, again, she got the plastic surgery. Everybody in the prison knows that she had plastic surgery and that she used to be a different person. Now, obviously, in every prison movie, every prison TV show, prison-related thing that we see, there's always, like, the gang, like the person in charge, like the head girl or whatever. And then when when they saw her, they were like fucking with her, and they were just like, oh, you're the new girl. They tried to like intimidate her. And then here's the part that actually I thought was really cool, because there was one particular person from the gang who tried to bully Mask Girl. And then when she tried to bully her, it didn't work, and Mask Girl basically headbutted her and broke her nose. So they put Mask Girl in solitary confinement. And then everybody kept telling Mask Girl, they was like, look, stop fucking with them because you don't want any problems with this gang. But as they say, when it comes to prison, the best thing that you can do is find the person in charge, or find the biggest, toughest person you can find and punch him right in the face and let them know that you ain't playing, and that you ain't no bitch. This chick, they put her in solitary. She comes out of solitary confinement, and as soon as she comes out of solitary, the first thing she does is find that same girl, chase her down, and beat her ass. So they put her back in solitary. So she comes out of solitary confinement, she goes to the cafeteria, finds that same chick, takes a tray, smacks it over her head, and beats her ass. So this went on for like weeks and weeks and weeks. She beat this bitch on sight. Every chance she got. Every time she saw this chick, she beat that ass. To the point where, like they had let her out of solitary confinement, and then the woman was just like, wait, what day is it? And then she saw the girl coming, and she was like, oh no. Then she started running. She chased around, trying to start beating her ass again. And then that's when like the head person in charge, she was just like, like maybe we can call a truce here. And then that's how she got her respect, and they left her alone in prison. In the 6th episode, I believe it was the 6th episode, it was about Mask Girl's daughter, because throughout every episode, like a significant chunk of time has gone by. So now Mask Girl is older now, like she's in like her 40s. She's like in like her early to mid 40s now. She looks crazy now because of the plastic surgery. Like plastic surgery didn't age well for her, but she basically spent like 20 years or something like that, maybe 10 years. It was like 10, 20 years. 10 to 12 years, we'll say. She spent about a little over 10 years in prison, and by now her daughter is actually like in high school. And we ended up, and this particular episode was about the daughter, whose name was Mimo. Like her name was the Mask Girl's name was Mo Mi Kim. Her daughter's name is Mimo Kim. So now we're talking about Mimo, who's the daughter. And then we see that there was a scene where Mask Girl, before she turned herself into the police, she gave her daughter to her mother and begged her mother to raise her daughter as her grandchild, which is crazy because this is the same woman who told you throughout your entire childhood that you were ugly, but she knew her mother had money and everything, so she knew her mother could take care of her. Her mother begrudgingly took the girl in, and when she took her in, she basically raised her. She wasn't the nicest to the kid either. I mean, she did love her, she did take care of her, but because she was so upset and shamed about her mother being Mask Girl, whatever, the daughter grew up with an attitude problem. She was constantly getting into fights in school. She never made friends. Like she was always causing trouble. Like, because she was like emotionally disturbed because she didn't know her parents. She didn't know who her dad was. She didn't know who her mom was. And her grandmother never wanted to tell her anything. It gets to a point where they put her in a specific school. And then when they put her in this specific school, she ends up meeting a friend. So like she did make a friend. So Mo Mi Kim, she did make one friend. She did have one friend, which kind of like softened her up a little bit and toned her down from like being like an angry child. There was this one particular lady that worked a food cart in front of the school, and Momi befriended the old food cart lady, and she was like her, basically like her grandmother away from her grandmother, and she confided into this food lady, and her and this food cart lady actually became like really good friends. We find out later on that the food cart lady was the son of the coworker. She escaped from the car that got dropped into the ocean because they showed us the scene where when the car got pushed into the water, the mom woke up in the car and she used the shotgun to break the windshield and get herself out of the car. And then she basically just like plotted for 10 years how to get her revenge. And then when she found out that Mask Girl had a daughter, her plan was to befriend the daughter to kill her daughter the same way she killed her son. So she pretended to be the girl's friend. And then she drove a wedge between Momi and her actual grandmother. She drove a wedge between Momi and her best friend at school. And then after that, after she drove that wedge, Momi got into an argument with her grandmother, and then her and her grandmother had this whole big falling out. She ran back to the cart lady, and then she was just like, "You're the only one that cares." And then she ended up taking her in. So now she's got what she wanted because she's like, "I got Mask Girl's daughter, like at my house, like I'm raising her." And now her plan is unfolding because the whole plan is to kill the daughter to get revenge on Mask Girl. So then she goes to the prison pretending to be I guess a nun, doing a confessional. Because by now that Mask Girl's in her 40s, she basically like she found Jesus, and like she's calmer now, like she's a more well-rounded person. But when she was having like Bible study, and the nuns came in to do the Bible study, the nun who was secretly the coworker's mom, she ended up telling her, she was just like, yeah, it's me, bitch, I'm not dead, and I got your daughter, and I'm gonna kill your daughter, and saying, when you killed my son, how do you like them apples? And then she left, and there was nothing Mask Girl could do about it. So Mask Girl basically ends up breaking out of prison to go rescue her daughter. Momi's best friend, she found out that Momi was in danger, so she told her actual grandmother. The actual grandmother went looking for her. Mask Girl broke out of prison, and Mask Girl went looking for her. So now the grandmother, Mask Girl, and the best friend, all three of them are trying to find Momi Kim, who's tied up now by the mom. So they find the house. I forgot how they found the house, but all three of them find the house. The grandmother goes in first. So and it's weird because Momi Kim is downstairs tied up. The mom has a video camera on her, and she's going to record her killing the child, which is crazy to me because that's her grandchild too. And I don't think they ever acknowledge, to this day, because again, the mother's whole motivation was, Mask Girl killed my son, I want revenge for my son. But I don't think she ever found out that the child that Mask Girl had was her actual granddaughter as well. I don't think she ever knew that. So obviously the child didn't know that was her other grandmother, but her first grandmother shows up. The two grandmas get into a fight, and then the child, her best friend, goes downstairs. She unties her from the chair, and then while the mother was fighting, while the two grandmothers were fighting, the coworker's mom ended up killing Mask Girl's mom. And then when Mask Girl showed up, finally, she saw her mom there. And then when her mom saw her daughter, she told Mask Girl, she was like, I'm so sorry, for treating you the way I did growing up. And she was like, I love you, daughter, and I love, Momi Kim as well. So then Mask Girl just lost her mom. Now it's basically Mask Girl versus the mother, and they're fighting outside. She ends up verbally admitting, that she tried to kill her child, and then the police show up. Everybody heard everything. But then when the mom realized oh, the jig is up, they're about to kill, the cops are about to take me. She was like, no, I'm gonna get my revenge, damn it. She stole, the cops actually took her and tried to handcuff her. She took one of the cops' guns, and she tried to kill Momi Kim, and then Mask Girl saw that. She jumped in front of the bullet, and she took a bullet for her daughter and saved her daughter's life. And then actually I think, and then one of the cops shot the mom, so the mom died too. So now both grandmothers are dead. Mask Girl, she dead. And then before Mask Girl died, she looked into her daughter's eyes, and then she was just like, I love you, Momi Kim. And then Mask Girl died. So now that's crazy. And Momi Kim was now in the foster system because she lost her entire family. She never found out who her dad actually was. She never found out that the woman who abducted her this whole time was her second grandmother. And then the series ends with Momi Kim, because I guess she was in a foster family at that point, but she had a box that had some of her mother's old things, some of Mask Girl's old things, and one of the things was in there was old videotape footage, and it was videotape footage of when Mask Girl was a child, and she was dancing and competing in pageants. So the show ends with Momi Kim watching her mother be a performer. That's how the series ended, and thank you for tuning in. So that was good. 7 episodes, and like I said, I say the yay. But the one aspect of the show that's crazy to me, when you watch the series and you watch how everything unfolded between Mask Girl killing the coworker, the best friend dying, all this death, all this destruction, the crazy shit about the entire series, every single thing about this series could have been avoided if Mask Girl's mother from the very beginning would have just told her daughter she was pretty. That's all she had to say. If her mom would have said, hey, honey, you're beautiful, I support your dancing, your musical career, you'll be somebody. If her mother was just supportive of her, this series would have never happened. This whole series, and it's sad because the grandmother, the mom, she did die in the end. She did redeem herself because she redeemed herself protecting her granddaughter and protecting her daughter's child. So the grandmother did redeem herself in the end, but had she just told her actual daughter she was pretty, none of this shit would ever happen. And that shit blew my mind because at the end of the day, I'm thinking I'm watching a series about a girl who just wants to be a cam girl and a dancer, and then it turned into this whole murder mystery and everything, and this child kidnapping abduction case. And I'm just like, at the end of the day, the story is basically about a mother's love for her child, or lack thereof. It's like, the generations of moms. You have one mom who basically didn't give her daughter the love that she deserved, which sent her on a spiral, which put her in a position to give up everything to sacrifice for her daughter, which is something her mom never did for her. So it was crazy. Like I said, it was one of those things where I was like, yo, how did we get here? I'm like, first I'm watching this girl dance on camera. Now I'm watching a murder mystery. Now the damn child's wrapped up in the basement. I'm like, how did we get here? But it was a really good series. I mean, there's no reason for us, unless season 2 is going to be about the daughter, there's no reason for a season 2. So like I said, I say the yay, and I suggest you guys go online, go on Netflix, check out all 7 episodes of Mask Girl, leave a question, comment, and more below down in the description. Check me out on social media, Twitter, X, and or Instagram, always on YouTube, where you can leave your questions, comments, and concerns. And like I said, let me know what you think. What did you think of Mask Girl? What did you think about each individual character? Who did you think got a raw deal? Share your questions, and we'll continue to talk about it. I got Blue-Eyed Samurai up on the channel as well, another Netflix animated series, which I thought was really good. And like I said, until Aquaman shows up, and until we get some other DC content coming out soon, or Marvel content as well, we'll keep pushing it out as we drive for all of this superhero and television and movie goodness. So that was it, guys. So thanks for tuning in. So till next time, watch the girl on camera. Look out to the future for Mask Girl, and we're out this.